Hey everybody, John Huber here, Maryland K-12. I'm taking a look into the situation down in Somerset County regarding the Board of Education and the superintendent, and now the state's involved. It's a real mess down there, and nobody wants to see that. But it's a little complicated. There's a lot of angles. Excuse me. There's a lot of angles to it. So let's take I don't want to say a quick look. I'm going to kind of dive into it a little bit, try and give some perspective of what's going on. About a year ago, they hired a new superintendent, Dr. Tasker Mitchell, Ava Tasker Mitchell. And Somerset County in the state is, for whatever reason, one of the lower performing counties in the state. So she really had her work cut out for her. So if you're looking at, there was a magazine came out in June of 25 that ranked the Maryland counties for a variety of reasons. And they were dead last, 24 out of 24. So it was a real problem. The other issue that they had going on is that the state a few years ago had looked at their system and said that they needed to do something about their English language arts, ELA, their ELA curriculum, and said you need to do something about this because it's not good. And they were getting some community input and whatever. And for whatever reason, they kind of delayed that and they put it off to the side, and now that's just kind of hanging out there. So because they didn't do that, now things started, and then things started really getting difficult in May of 2004. This curriculum thing had been going on all along, and then, November of 24, the election. Election comes and they hired elected two new individuals to the board who are generally conservative in nature. And when they got there, they got right to work. One of the first thing they did was they started cutting. They proposed cutting media specialists, librarians, school librarians. They wanted to cut those. The county commissioners then actually stepped in and gave them more money than they asked for to keep the school librarians or the media specialists. I don't want to insult anybody. They're media specialists, but I've been around a while. I always called them librarians. So after that, they also meaning the new board, the new now conservative controlled board, they hired some new lawyers, some people who were a little more on the right, and they've got rid of some of the lawyers that they have been using in the past. And then a series of things, a tug of wars back and forth over a couple of things, and then that led to some community members saying that the board's not being responsive, and then a couple of outspoken parents came out and said that once cooperative alliance, if you will, between the board and the teachers and the board and the parents, that cooperative nature, and particularly between the board and the superintendent, no longer exists. It's a very difficult situation. Then it all came to a head one night, not too long ago, recently, where the board basically said that they wanted to get rid of the superintendent for whatever reason. And I've been digging around, can't really find an absolute legitimate reason, other than maybe the board just says, you know what, we're in charge, and it's our prerogative to hire and fire a superintendent based on what we say, and they did that. She, the new superintendent, or of course she's not new now, she's been there for about a year, she objected to that and she appealed to the state, and she actually, that she actually requested that the state remove the president of the board, and that's kind of in limbo right now. But anyway, the state issued basically a stay, a 60-day temporary freeze on everything until they can review her appeal of their attempted removal of her. So that's kind of where it stands now. And I read somewhere where the board president actually requested that the stay be removed because they have someone else in line that they want to hire. The state said no. Okay, but what this comes down to is this. The state board of education is, and I've said it 1,000 times, I'll say it again, they are the absolute final authority on all matters education. Local school boards have, as much as they don't like to admit it, they have minimal control over what's going on, whether you like it or whether you don't like it. Okay, lots of people have voiced their opinions and objected to what the school board's doing. Lots of people in the community have approved of what the school board's doing, and they've approved it through their election of these new board members. The State Board of Education is coming in and saying, and if you read the letter that was sent by the state superintendent to the board, it's a public letter. Go ahead, dig around, you can find it. There is absolutely no question in the language that they are saying, we are in charge of all matters education, and you're going to do what we say. Part of the issue, too, is now the Somerset board is kind of fluctuating a little bit on this English language arts curriculum. They haven't really made a final decision. And if they don't by, I think it's August 30th, I mean, we're coming within a week or two. If they don't do something, they're going to lose like a $10 million grant. That's got some people up in arms a little bit, and there's a lot of uncertainty. But what this is, and make no mistake about it, however you feel, and I have a lot of personal feelings on both sides. The fact is, the state is flexing its authority here. So everyone in all the other counties, Worcester County is as well, who like to sit there and say, well, do this and do that, and if you elect me, I'll get rid of this, and I will do this, and we think the school board ought to, not so fast, because the state, and I've said this before, and now we're seeing it actually play out, the state's going to have something to say about that. It's not as easy as one might think So before we start yelling at our local officials saying, you need to do this, you need to do that, we need to take a step back and think, is this what we really want to go through? Because what's happening here in Somerset County is a classic example of exactly what would happen if we started making policies that go against what the state wants. I'm a generally conservative guy. I'm not a crazy right-wing guy, but I'm a generally conservative guy, as are most people on the Eastern Shore, and especially the Southern Eastern Shore. But education is run by the state. They are not. They are not so much conservative in nature. So before you start arguing with your local board members, and before you start arguing with the school and the school board, you need to look at the state, because this is, it is what it is. So, and I hate to say that, it is what it is. Anyway, I hope this helps, a little perspective, and we'll see how this thing plays out. But this is the front line. This is the front line in the battle over local versus state control. So anyway, thanks. Have a great day.